Hey everyone, welcome back to Fundraising for Startups. In this module, I am going to walk you through how to build strong investor relations. Now, this is assuming that you have already raised capital. This is not about kind of generating leads and ramping up to fundraising. This is once you've closed some funds, how do you actually keep your investors engaged and active and forming that relationship with you and building that trust? That's what this is all about. And again, this assumes that you're communicating with current investors. I'll walk you through what I call Investor Relations 101, and then I'm going to show you how to craft monthly updates, and I'll actually walk you through the exact example that I use for Growth University when we send out our monthly updates. Okay, so let's dive in. I would say arguably the most important aspect post raising money, other than spending that money wisely, is to build trust and credibility with your investors. And so how do you do this? Well, you do this by staying present and by having regular correspondence and communications with them. And you eventually build that trust over time. Remember, unless you personally know your investors, the people who put in money, you likely haven't known them for that long. So especially for later stage rounds where you're just getting to know investors, really anything beyond friends and family, you're working with strangers in many situations, and you have to build trust for this to be a relationship that's going to work moving forward. And you do this, and it's absolutely critical. Just know that the investor community is very, very small. It might seem like there's a ton of capital in the market right now and that you're seeing tons of buzz about fundraising, and we are, but it is still a very, very small community. Do not ruin relationships by not building this trust with your investors. I can't stress this enough. Once you stop building trust, or once you kind of revoke that trust, it's incredibly hard to build that back. And I've heard stories of founders who have broken trust with their investors, and it's very, very hard for them to raise money again down the road, even from a different set of investors, because word gets around about how founders handle their companies and their relationships with their investors. So number one rule is to build trust. The number two item that I tend to look at here is staying present. And what I mean by this is that you're much, much, much better off almost in every situation to keep your investors in the loop and to keep them engaged, whether it's weekly or monthly or even quarterly perhaps. Figure out what the regular schedule of correspondence with your investors is going to be and stick to that. So for example, if they email you and they've got a question, answer the question. Don't let it just sit there. If you need help, ask them for help. They are here to support you. Most investors, in fact, probably every investor, wants you to succeed. They put their hard-earned capital into your company for a reason. They want you to succeed. One of the ways that you build trust and to continue a strong relationship with the investor is to stay present and keep them at the top of your mind and keep your company at the top of their mind. With this, you have to balance the good and bad, okay? Not every update's going to be great. Almost every startup universally goes through great times and tough times, right? And that's why they call this a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of emotions. If you're a founder, some days you're going to wake up and you're going to say, I'm ready to take on the world. Other days you wake up and you just feel like you got run over by a train and you don't even know where to start because maybe your task list is so long and you literally don't even know what item to choose from that list because you've got 1,000 things to do. Well, I totally get that. What is critical though, is that you handle your correspondence with your investors with truthfulness. And that means that you have to be able to focus on trying to be as positive as you can be, but also be truthful and realistic if things, for example, are not going amazingly well. And so remember, not every update you're going to send is going to be great. If you're having difficulty with your business, and you know this early on in a month or early on, so you're getting some signal, something feels off, something feels wrong, ask for help. Talk to your investors. Give them a heads up that you're having a hard time or that somebody on your team is having a hard time or that growth is going more slowly because something happened in the market or you're concerned about something, okay? Don't bury bad information. Don't bury the challenging things that you're going through, because it'll either haunt you later or you won't get the help that you might need right now. And so specifically, metrics. Don't try to bury the metrics. You have to be transparent with what's actually happening in your business. And hopefully your business is growing and doing well, but you will have bumps along the way. Don't bury that information, because investors will uncover everything. Okay. Now, that being said, I think I hopefully didn't scare you too much with that last one. Investors know that they've signed up for a long road with you. And the best investors they'll be there with you to support you along your journey. And you want to celebrate the good things that are happening both with your team and with your investors. So you should feel proud about things that are going well. And again, communicate the things that you're having a hard time with. Great example is if you've raised money from, let's say, a syndicate or from a group of angel investors, and you have access to their contact information. If you get stuck in a certain nuance of marketing or product-led growth, or you don't know how to build a retention chart, chances are somebody in that network who's probably a high worth individual has already been through a lot of this anyways. Reach out and ask for help. And again, they know that this is a long road, and they'll likely be supportive of you if you have their trust. And if you in the past broke that trust, and when things are going south, that's when you see really bad things happen. And look, this gets tense, especially if you have multiple months that are challenging for your business and you're trying to raise money. I totally get it. You may not get the support that you want or need. And that might be a reality for some of you. But again, if you're communicating early and often, and you're celebrating some of those good things, and you're transparent, and you're asking for help, there's not much more that you can do other than doing that. So take it all with a grain of salt. So I'm going to walk you through what I use for crafting my monthly update. And this was very much inspired by the work that the Launch Accelerator team is doing in terms of helping the portfolio companies really frame out their updates in a way that makes sense. And so kudos to a large number of folks on the Launch team for kind of inspiring this piece of this talk. But basically, there's kind of 5 main elements that I'll walk you through that I think make up a great update. And I'm going to use the monthly update as a frame of reference here. So everything that I'm about to show you is focused on me sending out an investor update right at the start of a new month, which covers the last month of business for the business. And there's really these 5 key areas. Now, you might have 7 or 10 or 4 or 3. It doesn't really matter. But what I would urge you to do is come up with a template and a framework that you use with consistency every week. For me, this includes an introduction every week of who we are, who the company is, who I am, what we're doing. And then a deep dive into our key metrics. And you'll see these metrics over and over and over again. If you're an investor of ours, every month you get a report of the same metrics. And why? Because you start to build consistency and pattern recognition around them understanding how the business is actually performing. The next thing I do is a CEO update. This is a little bit more off the cuff. This is kind of like, what am I feeling about the company right now? More or less in real time as I reflect on the last 30 days. How am I feeling? I'm going to ask for help. So in every update, I'm going to say, here are ways as an investor you can help me. Now, if I don't have anything that I think I need help with, I'll just say, I don't really need any help right now. But generally, there is always an area where I'll ask for help. The next section is going to be on charts and graphs. So showing your results instead of talking about it. And then the 5th is marketing spend and kind of other closing info. So I'm going to walk you through this. And there's quite a bit of content here. And so what you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice is that I've redacted some of our actual metrics. So all the blanks are our actual metrics. And so I'm not comfortable sharing all of that kind of in a public setting here, but this is exactly the email that was sent, just with these white spots here that have been redacted. So I'm going to read this. So intro and key metrics. subject line is Growth University June update, Growth University May update. It'll be July update, August update. Hey everyone, hope the summer is off to a good start. So I'm trying to make that personal connection. This is the second update from Growth University. I had only sent one before this. I want to thank each of you who reached out after the last update with words of inspiration and support, as well as for some really great opportunities to get in front of your audiences and speak with speaking engagements and workshops. So I'll pause there. In my May update, I had said, hey, one thing you, investor, could do to help me is just get me in front of your audience, because I know that you've got companies that are probably viable candidates for Growth University. And some of them did that, and they co-hosted shows with me. I was on a podcast. It was amazing, and I'm still getting those happening today. So I asked for that. In return, I got a bunch of those opportunities that I'd asked for. The next thing I do here is, as a reminder, Growth University provides a platform to help startups grow via our live cohort long-form programs, on-demand content, weekly events, and supportive community of founders. Our mission is to increase the likelihood of startup success for the companies in our community. What I'm doing there is I'm just saying what we do. Again, a lot of these investors that you work with, they may be investing in tons of companies. They might forward this email to another potential investor for a future round and say, hey, you see how Craig runs the update? I love this. And by the way, you can learn a bunch about his company here. Literally just make their lives easy. Let them forward this email on, okay? The next section is around key metrics. This is where I'll always talk about revenue and customers, our two main metrics. I'll report, and I explain how I report on this. I'll report revenue based on subscriptions, annual upfront payments for a year, plus monthly recurring payments, plus one-time transactions. Note, our P&L revenue will vary a bit from our reported MRR and ARR and transactional revenue, as we often will get payments up front, but then report them as MRR for subsequent months. This is very nuanced for our business, but if we get a payment up front for the year, we'll actually model that out for the next 12 months and track that as MRR. But the P&L hit gets all of the money in the month that we receive the money. And so there is a discrepancy there. And so why am I doing this? If we get audited or if we go into diligence for a later round, we will likely have to share all of this data. So I'm just setting up that context early so there's fewer questions when we go. I include June updates and June highlights. So monthly recurring revenue. And what was the percent change from the prior month? What is our annual recurring revenue? How many one-time transactions did we do? What was our total revenue? And was that up or down? What's the average percent change in monthly recurring revenue over the past 3 months? Again, these are metrics that are important to me, and I think are important to our investors. Your metrics might be slightly different than this, but you can use this as a template. We added X new subscribers in June. We churned Y members in June with a X monthly revenue loss on that. Total subscribers is up to X, and new MRR was, and then I show the total there. Then I talk about our spend, expenses, and burn rate. So our total spend in June was some amount of money. Our actual revenue in was another amount, and our burn was whatever our burn rate was. And then I also show the cash on hand. I actually show what is left in the bank transparently on every email, so that if an investor starts to see that and they've got questions, I can just reply back to the email. Runway, we've got 12 plus months of runway, assuming a controlled and steady ramp up of the team members over the year. Again, I model everything to that 12-month view. Team size, 4 full-time employees, 3 content creators helping with course development. We're interviewing for these roles. More information below, and we'll have hopefully folks joining in August. So that's kind of the setup. And again, it's fairly detailed. It actually takes me quite a while to pull this all together. Although now I've got all my dashboards, and if you went through the Mastering Growth program or some of the other programs that we run at GrowthView, I actually use the dashboards that are built for those programs. So all I now need to do is basically copy and paste from those dashboards into this email. But there's a little bit of setup time. This will take you a little while to do. The next thing I do is I run what I call the CEO update or CEO report. And then I talk about, I'm not going to read you all this, but June flew by with reopening, school being out, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now notice what I'm doing here though. While July and August could be challenging with summer kicking in, we'll be as aggressive as possible to drive sustainable growth for our business. I was feeling a tiny bit of seasonality in our business in June. And it turns out July, there was some seasonality that hit, but I already set that up in the last email. So there's going to be no surprises if our next update shows slightly different metrics than what we had projected originally. This is why we communicate regularly. A whole bunch of more stuff here. You can read this in your spare time. Team, product updates. So if you've got a product, share your kind of key highlights, what new features you rolled out or something that changed. Marketing, talk about what you're doing that might be different than what you were doing before. And here you can say we started to shift to a lead gen model and funnel people into these free downloads we have in this free Growth 101 course. This means that we're going to have a longer tail upsell, which is going to start yielding results in July and August. So rather than just trying to get somebody to come in and basically purchase a program, we're warming them up more. We're trying to add more value. This is nuanced stuff for our business. Again, you share what you're comfortable sharing or what's most relevant to your investors, but this is what makes sense for us. Now I get into some of the key data points. So our total ad spend was blank, give or take, with the new customer acquisition cost of, and I shared the number there. And then we'll start to track our cost per lead next month, as that'll be a proxy for purchase. And then I even get into like some of the other stuff we're doing. Like we're doing a cold outreach campaign here. We pause that. So again, this is very, very detailed with the goal of just giving the investor all of what they need to know about what happened in our business in the month of June, in this case. What's also great about this is you send this to your team. And your team will understand how you're communicating with your investors. And hopefully there's no surprises for your team. And if you think about the cadence, all of these metrics here that I'm sharing with our investors each month, I review those exact metrics with the team every single Monday. Okay, without fail. Every Monday we look at exactly these same metrics. So my team knows that what they're contributing to that mix, where there's areas of improvement and areas where we're doing well. And then again, we share this with our investors. Moving forward, ask for help in this update was, hey, thanks. A bunch of you reached out to my ask for help to get me on podcasts and other speaking engagements. We've had a few of you send over companies to become members. Thank you. If you have any companies you think would be a great fit, we've got and I'm not going to share the deal, but we've got a slight deal that folks can join if they are kind of serial entrepreneurs and investors and have a portfolio of companies. I give them a link to go and use. And we get Growth University members signing up because our investors are using this as an affiliate channel to drive more people into our programs. So again, that ask for help, think of it as an area where they can help you dig in, where they can teach you something, they can help you out in an area, or you can leverage it as a sales vehicle, which we happen to do this in this particular month with this ask for help. Charts and graphs, probably one of my favorites, showing monthly recurring revenue here. And again, I just start our month with January, February, March, April, May, June, and we'll add to time here. You can see total monthly revenue in February was higher than March. Our MRR is going up every month. Our total monthly revenue is a little bit more chunky. Our active subscribers is kind of going up. But if you've got dips in here, especially if you're earlier stage, don't worry about it. Just have the story around what's happening with your metrics. So what you want to do is you want to just set the tone, set the context, build that trust. If I have a July and an August that look a lot worse than May and June, I'll roughly know why it happened, and I'll just be able to explain that. So again, not every month is going to be perfect. Don't hide data here, though. Don't fluff the data. Don't change the data. Use the true data. Show the metrics and just own what's happening, right? So right here, I said subscribers plus one-off transactional sales. Note, February was a month we experimented with higher ticket price one-off sales. We may explore this again soon, although we prefer recurring revenue. Why did I say that? Well, not just because February was way higher than any month until May, right? It's also that I'm admitting that we also might explore this higher ticket one-off course sales. And if you think about it from a business model standpoint, you may still not be entirely sure if a subscription business or a transactional business is best for you. And so what I'm doing here is I'm saying, while we prefer recurring revenue, you may see us experiment in some of these other areas with transactional revenue. And again, if we go and build new lines of business that are not recurring, I've already set that expectation here early. I'm not committing to anything. I'm not saying that we're going to do it, but it's likely that we might test something. So I include that while I show the metrics, and I try to provide context. And then lastly, marketing spend and info. And so I show exactly what we spent on marketing. Transparently for Growth U, some of our spend and the payback window has been an area of concern for me in terms of certain channels, but I'm transparent about it. And one of the things that I believe with our model, and I'm not showing exact metrics here, but one of the things that I'm saying here is that we're tracking about a whatever percent churn rate, which is performing far better than we thought that it would this early. And so we're kind of talking about churn. We're talking about the retention of these customers. If you looked at if I shared the CAC number above, our customer acquisition cost for this particular month was relatively high because we had effectively like doubled our spend, I believe is what we did in this month. And so like our efficiency went down a little bit. Again, so you can look at it from a bunch of different angles. One, customer acquisition costs being high is not amazing. And maybe the marketing spend might've been on track, but our CAC was a little higher. But we outperformed our churn ratio, and we retained a higher percentage of members than we thought we were going to in our model. So the pros and cons they work together here to tell that full narrative. And I even say here, like, here's what our cohorts look like. I share the actual raw data here for number of retained customers and percentage of customers that are retained. And so you might be wondering, well, how do I build these? Again, these are in Mastering Growth in that program, and the retention module in the spreadsheets there. We go into a lot of detail on this. Ping me with questions. But these types of cohort reports and retention charts are really interesting to add to investor updates, because it really shows if you can build this, you're going to gain a lot of credibility, because a lot of founders don't know yet how this all works. And so they're trying to figure out even how do I build the report and the metrics. So I'm showing some fairly advanced stuff here as it relates to our model. And I think that buys us some credibility, especially given that we teach this stuff. So that is the tour. Again, just focus on that transparency and building that trust and credibility with your investors. And I wish you the best of luck as you figure out on your own how you communicate these updates and how you build those strong relationships with your investors. I'll see you soon.